Io sono Luca Ciuti, sono membro del collettivo Chiaroscuro e sono qua per moderare l'ultimo panel che è Focus on International Productions with Ula Pontikos and David McFarland. Ma voglio prima lasciare la parola, anzi voglio prima ringraziare Lights che ha portato questi due fantastici ospiti e ci ha permesso di fare questo panel che adesso vedremo, e voglio lasciare la parola a Tony e Tom per una piccola introduzione su Lights. Grazie.
So ciao tutti, or hello everyone. I'm Tony, I'm from Lights, taking care of the European market, and with me my colleague Vika is also here today. So I think we get this started.
Fuck, man.
I'm so
Why
sorry.
did you do that?
You're like red.
Yeah, because you fucking slapped me in the face.
So we are Lights Cine and we are passionate about cine lenses, but the story of our company can't be told without our sister company you might know, which is Leica. So Leica is our heritage in our DNA, so I want to get briefly over the history of Leica. And Leica is the inventor of the 35mm stills format. So as you can see, the history goes way back to 1869, where Ernst Leitz take over the Optische Werken in Wetzlar. And then in 1910, he hired a genius engineer called Oskar Barnack. And by that time, they were producers of microscope and optical instruments, more technical instruments. But Oskar Barnack was passionate about photography. So he was fed up with carrying all the stuff around, and with all the tools he had in Wetzlar, he decided to make a prototype of a very small camera. And this camera he presented in 1914 to Ernst Leitz. And so they decided, let's give it a shot. And in 1924, they introduced the first rangefinder camera, not knowing if this will ever be a success. But it turned out that it was a huge success. So in 1954, they presented the M system. And still for our company, the M system is very important. So with this compact rangefinder camera, it was possible that photographers all over the globe can capture, stunning pictures which recorded the history of our world. So here you can see some of those pictures. So we as Light Cine, we are trying to bring the Leica look to the world of motion picture. So our company is not that old, but as I said before, our DNA still remains the DNA of Leica. So in 2011, we introduced to the market the Summilux C, followed in 2013 by Summicron C, and in 2015 we received an Academy Award for Technical Engineering for the Summilux C, which for such a young company at the time was a pretty good start. So we continued to develop lenses, and in 2017 we introduced the M08s and the Leica Thalia. In 2019, followed by the large format lenses, Leica Prime and Leica Zoom. And finally, in 2021, 2022, Leica LC and Leica Zoom. So that means 7 sets of prime lenses and 1 set of zoom lenses. And it leaves us with the question why there are so many different products, so many different lenses that we produce. Well, the answer is pretty simple. Every script is different, and every story needs to be told, with a different character and with a different tool. So we consider our products to be like brushes for a painter. And, a painter does not every job with the same brush. So that philosophy we also have. So we have different products for different needs. So you might have a script where you will need a high performance lens, a good starting point. It might be a high budget production, or it might be a heavy VFX involved production. So you will need a very precise lens. So we have the lens family called Performance. So these lenses are all dedicated cine lens design with peak performance edge to edge. Most of them have a very flat field. They are fast and they have minimal aberration, and they are pushing the boundaries of optical engineering. So you might have a project where you need a little bit of character of a lens. So we also provide this. So this family, the character family, also are dedicated cine lens designs. They have dedicated fall off towards the edges, which means a little bit of loss in resolution and a little bit of loss in illumination. Most of them are standard speed. They are they have enhanced flaring. And the good news is they are smaller, lighter, and more budget friendly. And then, of course, as I told before, as we're very close with Leica, we have the Legacy family, which is all based on Leica still lenses. So what do we need by what do we mean when we say based on Leica still lenses? Well, it's exactly the same lens design. So you end up with the same Leica look you would find on an M11, for example. They have embraced aberration, but still Leica glass is known to be very sharp, so we are working with modern coatings. And they have improved mechanics to withdraw the harsh conditions on set. So I will give you a quick overview what lenses you will find in those families. So in the performance range, we have the Summilux C lenses, which are Super 35 lenses. We have the Lights Prime, which is a large format lens, and we have the Lights Zoom. In the character family, you will find the LC lenses and the Summicron C lenses. So the LC lenses, again, are large format lenses, and the Summicron C are Super 35 lenses. A little bit more on the Summicron C, so they cover more than the traditional Super 35 aspect ratio, but still they are designed for Super 35. And in the Legacy family, you will find our Hugos, which is a large format lens and is the M glass. You will find the very compact M08, which is actually, an adaptation of the M glass to keep the small form factor for, very small builds. It's a special purpose lens, if you want to call it that way. And we have the Thalia lens, which is a very interesting lens as well, because the Thalia lens is the Thalia 65, which covers the 65mm format. So Alexa 265 or Alexa 65 and all the coming large middle format cameras. So as you can see, we have a product to cover every project. So either you are shooting in Super 35, or you're shooting in large format, or you're shooting in 65mm format. So here you have an overview of the coverage of the different lenses. And of course, you can use a Thalia lens on a Super 35 camera. That would be no problem. But you always have to consider that you might lose a little bit of the character of the lens. So if you are working with a lens which is designed for large format and you shoot on Super 35 with that lens, you lose a little bit of the character of the lens. So you will end up with a more precise lens, you might think, because you are just using the sweet spot, the optical sweet spot of the lens. So, as I said, I just want to get quickly over some of our lenses. So we have the Lights Primes. It's a set of 13 full-frame lenses, all provide eye metadata. And this is the high-performance family, so you will have a very, very, very precise lens. And here are some of the movies that are shot on Lights Primes. Then we have the LCs, of course, a 13 full-frame lenses set with eye metadata. It's a standard speed lens, which is a character lens. And we have the Hugos, the super compact M glass-based 13 full-frame lenses set, provided in L and LPL mount, which is 100% M glass. So I don't want to talk too much about the products in detail because we have the panel following and this might be more interesting for you guys. So you can help yourself. You don't need me to explain how these lenses look because we provide a lens test tool on our website. So you can go on our website and compare our products. And this is super straightforward and very easy. So we shot a lens test. And every lens test is a cinematic scene which covers, the most crucial shots you might do. So starting with close focus, a detailed shot, having a wide shot. And all of these takes are actually shot on real camera with the real lenses. So you have a close focus, a medium long shot, you have backlight off the frame, a lens flare, a medium shot, and of course, as it all is shot on Venice 2 open gate 3x2, you also can see the coverage of a Super 35 lens like it's shown here. So these are typical elements where you can judge a character of a lens. And so it's very easy. You go on the website, you select the lens, the focal length, and the aperture, and then you press Add Video, and you can then again select the lens, focal length, and aperture. And when you're done and you selected all the videos you want to see, you can press the play button and play all the videos in sync. So that's it for me. I would like to introduce Ula and David and Luca on stage, and so we can proceed with the panel. Thank you very much.
Mi attivate? Eccoci. Ok, grazie Tony. Allora, adesso volevo ringraziare ancora una volta Lights. E tra l'altro ci è venuto a trovare anche Sebastian Lesch di Sony Europe, che volevo ringraziare. Ha portato il mini rialto insieme, tra l'altro anche tutte le lenti, se volete vederle, stanno nell'altra stanza per provare. Adesso volevo chiamare Ula Pontikos e David McFarland qui con noi, i nostri ospiti. Questo panel si svolgerà in inglese, ragazzi, mi spiace, spero che possiate capire quello che ci diciamo. Hi David, hi Ula, thank you for being here.
Hello.
Ciao, ciao ragazzi.
Are the mics on?
Something?
Hiya.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, there we are.
Hi.
Thank you for waiting for so long. I hope you're not too tired in the heat of Rome.
Well, thank you for staying for a start. I think you guys need an upload.
So we are focusing on international production with David and Ula today. First of all, I wanted to ask you guys, what have you been working on lately, most recently? Is there anything interesting you want to share with us, Ula?
So last year was fairly busy for me. There's a trailer which I took from internet. It's just dropped. Not sure about the resolution of it, but the film is called The Man in My Basement, and it was based on, well, there's more than that, by the way. It was based on Walter Mosley's book, and it stars Corey Hawkins and Willem Dafoe. And then after that, I did second block of Blade Runner TV series.
Very nice. When will it be out? Can you share?
I don't know.
You don't know yet. And what about you, David? What have you done recently?
Recently, I've been doing kind of back-to-back feature films. Last year, I did a film that we filmed in Croatia, a World War II drama called Vindicta, which is about to enter the festival circuit later this summer. And very recently, I just wrapped a feature film which we shot in New York, where I live. We wrapped about 2 weeks ago, so I'm sort of finally caught up on rest.
All right. Amazing. So yeah, here we can see some of the footage Ula and David brought, and this will be running as we speak. So I wanted to start off by asking you that, in Italy, most productions can be labeled as independent by international standards. However, often the cinematographer doesn't change his or her approach to the way he plans to shoot or the way he wants to build the visual language. What makes the bigger difference for you in that respect? Is it budget, or is it just the script, time, narrative constraints? What is it that makes the difference?
Sure. I think I understand the question. Is the budget more influential than the script? Is that kind of?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes
Sure.
probably I didn't express myself properly. What I'm getting at is that sometimes we always feel that you guys, you as international cinematographers, live in a world where the budgets are bigger, so everything is easier, or you have more creative freedom. Is it the case, or is it not?
Capito. I think, I certainly don't pick my projects always based on the budget. I mean, I typically go with what is the most interesting script or experience for me. Maybe there's something I can relate to. But so for me in my career, the budgets have gone from quite really high to quite low. And I mean, my personal taste and my sensibility doesn't change because there was a certain amount of money budgeted for how I might or might not want to light the project. So I try and come into any project based on what's on the page, and I try and make all my decisions based on what's going to drive the story forward. I can say that, as a cinematographer who has a foot firmly in bigger narrative projects as well as smaller narrative projects, I get a lot of gratification from going between the two. If I was only doing really large, very high budget projects, I think I would start to get used to that pace, and that might be not great for my career. I like going from one big project into a quite small, more intimate setting where I can take a more improvisational approach, or I can light more broadly, or I can feel a little more free. So the project I just wrapped, was a smaller film. We shot it in 25 days, and our crew was pretty small for a union film in the United States, and it was really gratifying. It was really great to be able to shoot with a single camera where I camera operated and be quite free. So I think I just tailor my approach to the story rather than the budget.
Ula?
I just remember the first project I chosen, and the budget was something like I think £100,000, which is about 120,000 euros. And it was probably one of the best projects I've ever done. It was called Weekend. We did it in 2011. It got released in Criterion Channel, and it's one of the nicest shoots I've ever done. It was very small. I didn't really have a gaffer. We had somebody who helped out, Angelica, who was great, but we didn't have a first AD. And my last project, my last feature film was, I'm not quite sure what it was, about $8 million. And, but I loved the script, and I loved the messages behind it. I loved the actors. It was the teaser trailer you've seen. It's very emotionally charged, politically charged. I've learned something from both of the projects. So in my ideal way, it will be always to work on projects I actually learn from. One of the other really projects I really can't forget about was a documentary, which probably wasn't the most beautiful or known. It was a small documentary about Anda Union, which is Inner Mongolian musicians in China, and it changed my life. Not many people have seen it, and I just love working on projects. They change, they make some discourse.
Amazing, thank you very much. So before I get to, I wanted to ask you a more technical question, but before, I wanted to ask you, so then what is the most important lesson you learned moving from a more independent production to a bigger one, if there's any?
Politics.
I agree with that answer. And I mean, I was going to say that in my experience, when I've been making a smaller project, the beauty of it is that everyone has to put their heads together to solve a problem, which can be amazing. But it's tricky if you carry that sentiment into a much bigger production that isn't as intimate. And sometimes you get on these these projects which, you know, there's many people that you're going to interact with, but you're not going to have a very real relationship with. And if I found that sometimes, you know, if I take this independent cinema approach where I'm trying to solve every problem or trying to be in every conversation, it's too much. And I mean, so I've kind of found to stay in my lane a little bit on the bigger productions and just focus on, you know, my aspect of the process.
So, going to, you know, picking up from the presentation, you know, we can see there is so much choice now in terms of tools, probably so much choice well, we never had before. So how do you navigate there? Well, how do you pick your tools for a project? For instance, lenses or a camera format. What's your process?
I mean, first for all, it's a collaborative project. So I choose my lenses in a similar way how I choose the script, but I think I choose my equipment together with the directors. If directors or the team I happen to work with. In television, it's a little bit more complicated because you've got showrunners and producers, but in general, you have a pool of people to present lenses to. So obviously, I shortlist I have some ideas, and it really depends on the project. And I think it's really important that some projects requires shallow depth of field, other projects require deeper focus, other projects require anamorphic sensibility because it's all about the landscapes, let's say, or we wanted to do a more sort of traditional photography approach. So I think it's talking to directors or talking to creators, people who are writing, showrunners, and decide what's the right approach, decide about more or less the aspect ratio, and then present 2 or 3 lenses. That's how I test. I probably will shortlist. I'll do a shortlist of few lenses in a rental house, and then I narrow down to 2, present them to the creatives, and hopefully they will go my way.
Yeah, that's always a scary moment where you have an idea of where you want to go, but then you start presenting it and it might not go that way. I have a very, very similar process to Ula. I mean, as Tony mentioned in the lights demonstration, the way Lights looks at their lenses, as he put it, looking at it like each lens is sort of a paintbrush, is very much how I look at optics. And you know, now shooting digitally a lot, I think that the choice of optics is a really important one. I certainly strive to, you know, be a part of creating a cinematic language for every project, and that language is often a very subliminal one, and I think that's a really interesting way to look at choosing lenses for their more subtle cinematic, their more subtle subliminal qualities. And then there's the form factor as well. I operate the camera myself a lot, and I often shoot on locations where, like this, for instance, we were filming in Ramallah, and I chose lenses. I had 2 sets of lenses for this, and one was lights, so that'll make Tony happy. But I did it because of the speed, and because of the resolution, and because the camera needed to remain quite small. So I chose a set of lenses with a really small form factor. But I also want to invite the other creatives into the conversation, because cinema is really the union of so many different mediums that, you know, I come in with an idea of something that, you know, something that I either have tried and I know what the results will be, or there's something that I want to try, and so I shoot tests and then invite everyone else into the conversation. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the most exciting times of the filmmaking process is those first conversations where you're talking about the fundamental aspects of what you're trying to say. So that's one of my favorite aspects of the whole process.
Amazing, thank you guys. And actually this brings me to the next couple of questions. So, of course, you know, guide is director and main collaborator, and we strive to achieve his vision, but many of them approach their work differently. So many directors do things differently. They have a different way of tackling a story or a language. How does that affect your work? And if you have any particular director you like working with, or a particular director's approach you prefer?
I think again, I tend to prefer, not exclusively, but tend to prefer working with directors who originated their script, because there is something really personal and they have a story to tell. So there is something simpler and more complicated, but there is a one channel of idea. And I think my job is to support that idea. So in a way, I'm there to carry it, translate it, and put it, as a one of many people to help out to bring it to the big screen. So, the way of working is slightly different, because I hope that there is a certain style I am, and therefore they chose me for this project for that style, whether it's lighting or framing. But there will be an element of something which they already put in. So the projects are different, just simply by, really the films happen when you go into edit. That's what Scorsese said, and I really believe in it. We do a certain level, but that's not all.
Okay, David?
I too prefer to work with directors who have written their own material, if possible. I find myself often working with writer-directors, and that means that many times I've made films that are very personal for the director. And for me, that's a very an amazing position to be in, where they've put this trust in me to help them bring something so personal to life. That said, I like to work with directors who have a really strong point of view with the camera. And that's not every director. Some directors are certainly more actor-oriented. I do like that conversation, though, about after a blocking rehearsal, trying to figure out what the important angle is, or how to change or augment the shot list that you came up with weeks before. I really like being challenged by directors who have a strong vision. Early in my career, it used to really terrify me when directors would change their mind as you're starting to line up the shot. And now we were just speaking about this, where now I see it as sort of a gift when directors say, I know we talked about this, but what about that? And I really love engaging in that conversation. And so yeah, I've been really fortunate to work with a lot of directors who have really good command over the camera, but also just a great level of life experience that they apply to their storytelling. And I can only benefit from that, because I take everything with me from one project to the next to the next. So
what factors make you choose a project over another? Is there any particular, you mentioned, of course, writers, directors, more intimate story, but is there anything particular you're striving to achieve? Or what is it that tackles your imagination that makes you want to make a movie or a series in particular?
I think it can be a lot of things. I mean, sometimes it's the story really speaks to you, or sometimes it's the subject matter more than the script, or it's the place, the experience that you might gain from just being there and doing that project. I don't know. What do you?
Yeah, I think that obviously you need to connect to the story. You need to connect to the project. I think they're all. Nothing is ever 100% perfect. But also I think it's like, I think we all have small obsessions in life, and I think they're the little chapters of our life influence the photography we're making, especially when you're operating.
Certainly, I agree. I studied anthropology as well as filmmaking, and it might have seemed like it would have been obvious for me to go into documentary, but that just wasn't really where my heart was. It was cinematically. So I've been very lucky to do projects all over the world, which is kind of really which has really been good for my interests culturally. So sometimes, I found myself just wanting to explore a certain part of the world, and then a project comes up in that part of the world, and so it seems like a no-brainer for me to go. I've been really lucky to go a lot of cool places.
Nice one. Actually, you gave me a perfect assist for another question, which is, our work, job actually, brings us everywhere around the world, and we have to deal with different cultures and different crews. So how do you find it? How do you deal with it? Does it give you anything for, does it add anything to your approach to the work in particular, or I don't know if you have a shot in Italy, for instance, we have a different probably approach than, I don't know, Britain or United States. So how's that for you?
I did a commercial in Milan, and then I didn't do really a long form here in Italy. I had the Italian producer once for Kinder project. So I can't really say. I mean, I just don't think it makes any difference. I think it's like, it just adds just a different flavor. I think the way how you communicate. I think there is a tendency that crews tend to be similar in many ways. You have to like each other very quickly. You have to make friends really quickly. You have to support each other really quickly. And I think these sort of mentalities do go through everywhere where you go. I think one of the sort of trickiest places I've been filming was in Inner Mongolia, in Hohhot, where I had to, so it's in Hohhot, capital of Inner Mongolia, where I had to light a concert. And I think that was really tricky for, with translation, especially because we were going through like 3 different mentalities within a Chinese translator, Inner Mongolian band, and the Brits, and I'm Polish on top of it, with Greek last name. So that was complicated. But I think, and also I think it was because it was within the periphery, so not necessarily the film industry, but it was also theater. So I think the ways of working was very different. But I don't think that I would have the same challenges on a feature film in China with the crews. I think I could I've met some crews in many places, and in all, we tend to be very similar type of people, despite the languages and the cultural differences, and the way how we eat.
And how to eat?
What we eat.
Oh, see. Yes, I too have worked in a lot of different places, often where I'm the only non-indigenous crew member, and it comes with its challenges because when you go somewhere as a tourist and you're there for a few days and you interact with people, it's different. When you interact with the local population, it's very different than when you go somewhere and you're working in a stressful condition and you hire a lot of people. You inherently see the cultural differences very quickly in terms of work ethic and style and ways of communication and senses of humor. And I think I always take a bit of responsibility where I have to find a way to sort of fit into this culture. And while I agree that the film, the world of cinema often attracts a similar kind of person, and there are certainly similarities between me and my counterparts in North Africa or in Central Asia or Europe or wherever I work. There is that moment that's always really exciting for me, is when you kind of start to see the culture the work ethic from a realistic standpoint. And it's really made me look at my own voice and the way people from outside of the United States might perceive me, because coming in as a DOP, you're coming in with a lot of responsibility and a big voice on a set, so you can control the dynamic or the tone, and it can be really difficult if you don't understand the culture or the work ethic. But I've always found that as a positive, and certainly I've learned a lot from local gaffers or crew members, and I've certainly walked away with a lot of interesting new tools in my arsenal because of working in so many different cultures.
All right. So I also, I think that everywhere you go, you also have a different natural light. Sometimes, different, height and angle of the sun and all of it. And I've seen you done. Both of you have done a lot of things that are masterfully lit, but also very good use of natural light. So I'm wondering, how do you approach that? What's the trick for you in terms of using the natural light to your advantage, basically, or not?
I mean, the trick for me is how much time do you have to shoot? I mean, for me, I would love to shoot everything in natural light if I could. But the key in my experience to being successful working with natural light is making sure that everyone understands that is the goal. Because if that's the case, then there's a higher priority put on when you shoot. And I've worked with some actors who understand that, and when you say it's time to shoot, this is where the light is coming through the windows for the desired effect, but it's a small moment. We have to roll right now. Some actors get that and they're there, and some actors, their process is just it's a long process, and I respect that. But if that's the case, then the priority is based more on their time needs, and so natural light is not possible. So whenever I'm setting out to do a film where the desire is to shoot in as much natural light as possible, the first few days or the first few weeks are very telling for me if that's going to be possible. I mean, I usually have a pretty good idea by lunch on the first day if we're going to make it or not. So I typically come in and kind of have a backup plan with how I might light something until I realize if we're going to be successful moving quickly. What do you think?
I mean, I just try to make my lighting natural, if that's the desired look. I don't know. I mean, not quite sure how to answer it. I think, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like you're in a visual storytelling, so you business, so you figure out the way how you can control the sun, which is always moving, and your style is whether naturalistic or it is more heightened. And I think these are the discussions you make with the directors, and then you stick to the plan. You have to schedule accordingly. Actually, this show was within the desires of natural light. There was a show with a lot of intimacy. We made the light natural. This whole section is in a studio. It goes from exterior to interior. We had a lot of needs for the actors, so we had to make sure that the show is swimmingly going between the studio. Very often we had shots where we cut between exterior, looking into exterior shots to interiors. I think within the schedule, very often you will have to make the lights natural afterwards because the sun goes down, because it is not the height of the summer. So if naturalistic is your desired look, you do everything to keep it. I think the only way I can only say, I try to make my lighting as little complicated as it's possible, because I think it is about giving the best chance for the actors to be able to block the scene. And I think it's like, I think it's to design it with as little stands as I can to put on the floor.
Yes, certainly. I mean, with that in mind, I mean, I try and keep my lighting as low profile as possible. I mean, of course, on any natural light movie, you're going to have moments where there will be some kind of illumination. But I think, yes, certainly keeping it very motivated and keeping it coming, you know, single source, or keeping it coming from a natural place. Because, yeah, at some point you're going to have to blend natural and artificial light.
But I think it's really important to schedule your shots around the sun and knowing exactly where and which direction you put. So there's something really quite interesting, is now I'm most of the time, unless I'm just being driven somewhere, but most of the time I'm aware where the south is. And I remember going back to my hometown recently, and I've been visiting my hometown, and I realized that since I become a cinematographer, I'm really aware of east and south and west. And I'm aware of the shadows, and I'm aware how light falls on this different street at different time of the year. And I can describe light on my street just around the corner of my house, because my observation for natural light is so different. And I heard so many cinematographers saying you have to watch the light. And it took me a long time to really, really watch the light properly and memorize that light and try to put it then back into cinematography.
Thank you. So you mentioned briefly earlier, do you guys operate your own camera all the time? I mean, try to do it all the time.
Yeah, as much as possible.
As much as possible. So how do you, I mean, of course, camera movement or lack thereof is at the art of visual language. So you will, I mean, how do you approach the, you know, the camera movement? How do you approach your, you know, composition, camera placement? Is it always something that you design, or is it something that you just look at the director's blocking with the actors and then you try and find the best angles? What's your approach, general approach? Of course, everybody's different, you know, every time changes, but
I like to have a plan.
I
like to have an idea of more or less how you want to cover the scene. I think blocking is a one thing. I think there is a vague shot list I'd like to have, and there is an understanding of what beats I need to bring to the story to then hopefully end up in edit to bring audience attention to a point. And I must say that I really truly recently realized how sophisticated Italian cinema is, and everybody knows that. But when you watch a photographic tradition of, I don't know, I'm just thinking at this moment, I'm sort of slightly obsessed by Sergio Lorraine, who is a Chilean photographer. But then it made me realize how,
Pasqualino De Santis.
Pasqualino De Santi, how visually sophisticated he framed, and how complicated, how visually complex his photography was. It really sort of gave me another level, because I think within a still image you can bring so much emotion in because you've got the time and the viewer's attention. I think it's harder to do it in cinema, and yet the Italian cinema somehow found that level of sophistication in such early times, and I'm just in a second wave of just being in. Just charmed by it. I really need to do another Italian session. And
okay.
I also like to have a plan, and I feel like that plan sort of comes naturally during prep and during, you know, visiting locations. I spend as much time on locations as possible, either with the director or by myself. But one of the reasons I like to operate the camera is because if I have an idea, or if I want to do something different in a certain take, I'm there, and I can do it immediately. And you know, I spend equal time, you know, with the camera handheld as I do back on a remote head. But I think if I'm at the controls, it helps me stay really engaged and be really creative and stay really in touch with the rhythm of the scene. at any point. But I also have to work however the director wants to work. And so some directors I find love to sit down for days or weeks and plan out every shot. And some directors really have to be there in the moment with their actors, or feeling the space to find the camera angles. And I'm equally comfortable on either side. But if I do feel like I'm working with a director who might want to figure it out as things are developing on the day, I certainly try and have a plan in terms of the amount of coverage I think we might need, or the kind of camera support we might need, or obviously the lighting, because a lot of times we've pre-rigged all the lighting. So I find that if I just come in and I do my process, which is being as prepared as possible with lens choices and shot composition choices already made, then I can deviate, I can change directions very quickly. But I have done movies where I haven't camera operated. And it started when I started shooting films that were more than one camera. And I felt like, okay, if there's two cameras, then I need to sit back and I need to watch both cameras. And in the last few years, I've kind of changed that a bit. I don't like the experience of sitting back, away, removed from the actors and the performance. Even though it is nice to focus on lighting, but I think I would much rather to feel alive and to feel the material flow through me into the lens. I mean, that to me is more, I feel more alive, and that's kind of why I do this. So if that work goes to someone else, I feel like I'm cutting myself off out of a really important part of the process.
Yeah, I agree. It's a completely different feeling. So I wanted to ask you one last question before we open to questions from the audience. We just had a panel, a couple of panels ago, about the difference between feature films and TV series. Does that, filming one or the other, is it different for you? Does it make a difference, or you just approach it the same way? What's your feeling about that? Because you both do both.
I think that the difference within the way how you tell the story, I'm not sure, probably not. I think the approach is the same. The difficulty within TV drama is that you are always working on your next setup, or on your next episode, or a place where you prep somewhere else. So it's not what you have in front, but it's all the other elements you have to make sure that they happen, whether it's another unit in Hawaii, or whether it's a setup you're going to do, because the schedule is so packed that, and especially on US dramas, you have maybe 15 days to shoot an episode for an hour, and that's a very short period of time, and you also are prepping another episode, or you're thinking about another episode, or you're supporting a second cinematographer down the line and making sure that things are sort of cohesive. So I feel that on TV dramas my brain needs to be really sharp, and always remember that what I'm saying in basically whenever they say action is the only time when I don't have to think about anything else. And when they say cut, I know that there's going to be about 10 questions in a minute where people will ask me.
Do you ever just put your head down on the viewfinder and just take a nap because no one can tell that you're asleep?
I did it once on a Monty Python documentary.
Nice. So guys, any questions from the audience? Domande? We have one here. Can I steal the microphone?
Thank you so much. So, first of all, thank you for your attention. And since you had the chance to work all around the world with different people, which is the most important things that you learned from all those different people that made you be able to enrich your personal cultural luggage and to improve your work and your job? I can explain the more simple way. You work with a lot of different people from different cultures, and you know that sometimes cultural differences can be an obstacle. So, have you ever learned like a lesson from someone from another country on a set that helped you realize, oh, that's actually great. I can keep this with me and make my job and myself better thanks to this thing, if this ever happened?
I mean, I think the two biggest ones are maybe obvious, but the biggest thing I've learned is just show respect and sort of come in respecting everyone. Right, that you'll never fail. And also just the things I've learned from working all over the world that has helped me is just how to communicate. Because obviously when there's, you know, a language barrier, that's hard to work through, but it's not impossible. When there's a work ethic difference, or you know, it's hard to find out what what ignites someone, or what makes them invested. That's a much harder thing to find. But it's also a really interesting thing to learn about yourself and to learn about the other place you're working. And so I think that after doing that and having some successes and some failures, of course, like it's helped me break my communication down to a really basic level. And I don't mean in terms of how I speak to someone, but I just mean in terms of like how I distribute information and how I explain what my intent is and why, and what my expectations are. So it's made me be really clear about the way I communicate, which has been helpful.
Thank you.
Any other question? Altre domande? Giù, potete passare per favore.
Hi, thank you for your answers and your experience. My question is about finding balance in the photography department. As we all know, it's a tree made of different branches. There's light, there's grip, there's screen, DIT, color, and there's camera. And as a young aspiring cinematographer that has been exploring, coming from still documentary photography in my bachelor's, then I've been exploring in the past 5 years the field of light, the branch of light, and I've been working as a spark in most of the productions that I was working in Italy. And now I'm finding a bit stuck on how I've been shooting also as a DP and gaffer certain jobs, but I'm finding a bit stuck. I'm finding myself a bit stuck between how do I dive deeper into the knowledge that I need in order to become DP when I have, let's say, more experience now in the light department, and we have to pay bills and survive still while we, you know, express and gain knowledge also in camera. So yeah, I guess it's how, my question is, how do you balance the knowledge of being a cinematographer while you dive deeper into one of the branches, let's say?
Well, I think you never know everything. So you have to do a leap of faith. And the tricky bit is that you don't put yourself farther that you can. So it's just being in the right level of uncomfortable, but not where you can sink. And I think the danger, the only danger is that if you take the project which is really over you, you have to surround yourself with people who you trust, who will support you. And really gauge of how much you can do and what you can do. You have to you have to think about your instinct. You're never going to know everything, and it is that leap of faith. And I get scared all the time, and it happens less and less. But the first, I don't know, the first 10 years, there were days. I still on the first day of shoot, I am so scared that I can't sleep. Because you have that excitement, but you also have that fright, and it's like, what happens if the first shot is really shit? And hopefully it isn't.
Thank you.
Okay, so I got a last question for you guys. What is your favorite Italian food? Yeah. Vongole. All right. You?
So I'm not a big fan of pasta and pizza, but I love bean stews and traditional Italian food. And actually my favorite thing is the white bean with parmesan of pecorino cheese and kale. So yeah, sorry.
Thank you everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for being here. Grazie a tutti per essere venuti e aver partecipato a questa giornata del CCS con chiaroscuro. Grazie a tutti gli sponsor. Grazie al Presidente Paolo Carnera, grazie ad Alessandro Fiono, grazie a Carlo Mignani, grazie a Chiuso Bianchi, grazie a Lights, grazie a Sony, grazie a tutti quanti ci vogliono bene, ci hanno voluto bene finora, grazie David, grazie Ula. There you go.